So you could say, like, well, shouldn't we reform the union? Well, as an outsider, of course you would say that. Like about the union coming out for Trump. Yeah, it was interesting, right? Hey, what's up, pleasers? But who knows how much that is, or if it's just some guys, you know, I view unions a lot like other organizations in that a lot of times when you get down to the bottom level, the average rank and file, people are pretty reasonable and there's a diversity of opinions, but a lot of it's controlled by the leadership so much. And I think a lot of people just go along to get along. So even previously, I bet even when unions, Democrats had dominating on unions, probably at the rank and file level, they're a lot like, I don't like these guys. I don't like Obama. I don't like Clinton, whatever. But hopefully it's a positive sign that unions are waking up. I mean, it is true, regardless of the Republican Party is terrible too, don't get me wrong, but the Democratic Party has totally left the concept of fighting for the working man. Communism and socialism is not policies that are good for the working person, and they don't care at all about the working person. They care more about the illegal. They care more about the criminal. They care more about the foreign citizen than they do the blue-collar worker here. They think the blue-collar worker here exists merely as a tool to provide benefits for those other groups that they consider oppressed. So, do I think unions would have ever been established without using violence? Yeah, they probably did. Violence is one tool that a union could use, but the idea of a union of just a collective group of people that are labor coming together and saying we're going to increase the value of our labor by unionizing, working together. So right now, if I have a company and I employ 10 people, the value of the labor, their bargaining power is less as individuals because I could easily replace one person. However, it would be very difficult for me to replace 10 people. So even without violence, those 10 people can come together and say, okay, if you fire one of us, you fire all of us. What do I think of police and police unions, pro or against? Difficult question, right? I think police are a necessity, that we don't want vigilantism as much as possible, and so you need a police force. I think probably the majority of police officers are fine. There are certainly police unions that will stick up for any police officer no matter how corrupt, and I think that's something that needs to be challenged, but it's difficult. All unions are like that. One of the interesting things about sports when it comes to labor, collective bargaining, these sorts of questions, sports actually show it in a way that's easy for most people to understand. So for many years, it used to be cliche that the strongest union in the country was the Major League Baseball player union. They went on strike, famously there. And what season was lost because of the baseball union? But take the umpires union. So there's this umpire. I don't know how close people follow baseball, but there's this umpire by the name, thanks, Jeff, an umpire by the name of Angel Hernandez. Everybody knows he's terrible. Like, you could find just YouTube videos of hours of this guy missing calls. He's just terrible. And yet, the umpires union will never get rid of that guy. They're going to defend that guy to the death because that's what the union's for. So you could say, like, well, shouldn't we reform the union? Well, as an outsider, of course you would say that. But part of being that union is, even if I'm shit, this union's sticking up for me. The same's true of law enforcement. They don't want to pile on a shitty cop because the whole point of the union is, well, someday I might be considered a shitty cop. It's a brotherhood. We're all in it together. And that means the good and the bad. That's the concept of a union. I got jumped by this fraternity once when I was in college. It beat me pretty bad too. And like 2 years later, I had people over at my house, and this dude came around. I think he was my roommate's friend. And he hung out and he was fine. And then he came back like a week later. And the second time he came back, we were listening to the Pittsburgh Pirates on our little radio out on the porch drinking beer. And he's like, hey man, I got to tell you, I was in that I was in that fraternity where those guys beat the shit out of you. And I was like, were you one of the ones that hit me? He was like, no, but I was there and I would have had their back, even though I know they're wrong, but they're my friend. They're my brothers. I get that. It's like, yeah, I've been that guy. I have shitty friends that you're out with and they start something and it's like, well, I have their back. I don't know why. They suck, but I'm their friend. Or even family members. It's like that, Yeah, the teachers union's tough. It's terrible too, most of them. So I get why you would want to unionize.